Good morning, class. Welcome to Read Aloud today. I want to ask you guys a question. Do you remember the book we read yesterday, Sergio and the Hurricane? You remember it?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember in the book, Sergio, he thought hurricane were what?
Fun.
They were fun and you could play with the hurricane, but then what did we find out?
They were dangerous.
They were dangerous and something that can cause, damage in the community, in the city, in a town, right? Because hurricane or, fast wind, hurricane is a storm, right? So we read that book of Sergio and the Hurricane yesterday, but today we're going to read some parts of this book called Hurricane by Gail Gibbons. Hurricane's the title, Gail Gibbons is the author. We're going to read more about the different kind of hurricanes there is. Right? But before we get into the book, I want to talk about some key words that you might need to know while we're reading, right? So, categories. Category is, does anybody know what a category is? Anybody have an idea what a category is? Do you know?
It's a group of things that are group based on different or similarities.
Okay, no, yeah, for sure. So it's a group of things that you put together based if they have something similar or the same, so you put those things in a category. Surge is like when you have water coming up to the land, like an upward movement, something coming up, right? That's what a surge is. Extensive is like a damage to something big, or a big damage towards something. And then you have the meteorologist, which is when you watch the Weather Channel or something like that, it's an expert predicting the weather. Right? The meteorologist is an expert predicting the weather. So we're going to read Hurricane, a part of Hurricane by Gil Gibbons, and I'm going to talk to you about what the meteorologist uses to see the hurricane and predict the wind and, categorize the hurricane. So we're going to read about the different kind of hurricanes there are. So I'm going to start off here, okay? In 1972, Herbert Safford and Robert Simpson developed a Safford-Simpson hurricane scale. This scale ranks hurricanes in categories of 1 to 5. So there's 5 different hurricanes from category 1 to 5. It has permitted meteorologists at the National Hurricane Center to predict the likely impact of an approaching hurricane. So again, the meteorologists use the scale to predict the impact of the hurricane. Okay. Category 1 hurricane. Category 1 hurricanes have wind speeds between 74 miles per hour and 95 miles per hour. There may be a storm surge up to 5 feet. Now, 2 things here. Mile per hour, that is something used to determine how fast something is. Okay? So the amount of miles something travels in an hour determines how fast it is. So the higher the mile per hour it is, then what? Is it slower or faster?
Faster.
Faster. The higher the mile per hour, the faster it is. And then in the category 1 hurricane, there is a storm surge up to 5 feet. Do you remember what a storm surge is?
Yeah.
What is a storm surge?
When water comes into the land.
When movement upwards. So that means the water comes up to 5 feet in a category 1 hurricane. There is some damage to trees and small buildings. Category 2 hurricane. Category 2 hurricanes have wind speeds between 96 miles per hour and 110 miles per hour. There may be a storm surge up to 8 feet. Coastal road floods and there is moderate damage. So now there's some water in the roads. Hurricane 3 categories. Hurricane 3 categories have wind speed between 111 miles per hour and 130 miles per hour. There may be a storm surge of up to 12 feet. Up to 12 feet. Trees are uprooted, large cars and trucks are swept away. There is extensive damage to buildings and boats. Now remember, extensive damage. Extensive damage is large damage towards something. Category 4 hurricane. Category 4 hurricanes have wind speeds between 131 miles per hour and 155 miles per hour. There may be a storm surge of up to 18 feet. 18 feet storm surge. The damage is devastating. Buildings suffer extreme damage. Roads and bridges are washed away. Boats are tossed around like toys. Now, tossed around like toys. You guys know what that is, right? This happens to bridges. When you have a toy in your hand and I tell you to put it away, how do you put it away? You know, you just put it
somewhere.
You put it in a basket somewhere. So this is what the hurricane does. This is what the hurricane does with the bridges. It's like you're grabbing a toy and you're just putting it away in a basket, right? That's what the hurricane does with the bridges. And lastly, hurricane Category 5 hurricanes. Category 5 hurricanes have wind greater than 155 miles per hour. Winds have been recorded as high as 318 miles per hour. Storm surges may be greater than 18 feet. 18 feet might be higher than some people. There is massive flooding and destruction. Massive flooding and destruction. Massive maybe something big. There's large, big flooding and destruction. So now, you know, the reason we went over these 5 categories of hurricanes because, you know, as I understand, you guys have been talking about hurricanes here in class. We read Sergio the hurricane yesterday because of what's been happening in the news. You guys have been hearing the news, right? And they've been mentioning the different categories that are coming. There may be some hurricanes in Texas and all. So you guys have been hearing about that. So I want you guys to understand what the different categories of hurricanes are. So now that we read about the categories of different hurricanes, remember what's used to determine the mile per hour of a hurricane? The meteorologists used the hurricane scale. Remember? So they would look into a screen. They would see the hurricane or the wind accumulating and approaching somewhere, and they would guess and determine. Okay, this is a 74 mile per hour wind hurricane. I remember after a 74 mile per hour, it's determined as a hurricane. After a 74 mile per hour, the storm is classified as a hurricane. So here you have a meteorologist, and he has to inform the people it's a category 1 hurricane, because we know that once it's above 74 miles per hour, it's a category 1 hurricane. Now I'm going to show you. We're going to do this one together. This right here is the screen of a hurricane scale. Now we're all going to act like meteorologists. We're going to help each other out, right? I'm a meteorologist and we're a meteorologist, and we're working together. We see this on the screen. We see the hurricane coming on the map, and we measure it out, and it comes out to be 96 miles per hour. Right now, remember, the hurricane category number 1 is 74 miles per hour up to 90 what? Remember? Up to 95 miles per hour. Now this starts at 96 miles per hour wind. So what does this mean?
It's a category 2.
Category 2 hurricane. So you're gonna have the hurricane scale, and you have the meteorologist stating what number hurricane it is. Now when you see you're gonna have multiple of these. So we're gonna write here, before we get into any further, we're gonna write here the number 2, right? You said category 2, 96 miles per hour, category 2, category number 2 hurricane. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna have multiple of these. When you go back to your chair and your desk, you're gonna have a few of these and a few of these, right? Each one of these are gonna have different mile per hour wind on it. And we're gonna act as meteorologists, and when you come up with the category number hurricane it is, you have to tell everyone what's coming and what damages are gonna happen, and you're gonna put them together on a paper like this. Hurricane scale is what the meteorologists use, and then you write the number of the scale and you put them together. Okay? Awesome. You guys all know what you're gonna do. You're gonna be able to start when you get to your desk. You have glue, you have pencils, and you know you can get going. If you have any questions, just let me know. Okay.